Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to welcome back Jonathan Henken, who's been helping us to open our Downtown Music series for the last 28 years. For many in our audience, Jonathan's annual appearance on the lawn in front of Grace Church is a sign of good things to come. We were determined that this year, especially, would be no different. The film we are about to watch was created for Downtown Music by Dougal Henken, Jonathan's son, who lives in Pleasantville and whose innovative work with graphics is respected around the world. I'm more than grateful to both Jonathan and Dougal for sharing their creativity with us. Following the film, Jonathan and I will have a conversation about playing this most venerable of wind instruments and the places its music has taken him. Your generosity has kept Downtown Music strong for 33 years, and there's so much more we can do with your help. Go to our website, dtmusic.org, check out upcoming programs, and find that donate button. Make a difference. Thank you.
Welcome to a virtual Downtown Music at Grace. My name is Jonathan Henken. I will be performing for you on Scottish Highland bagpipes, also known as the Great Highland Bagpipe or the War Pipes, as these are the pipes that for many years led soldiers into battle. Bagpipes are a truly ancient instrument. They can be traced back to ancient Sumeria, the cradle of civilization. The Romans brought the pipes with them as they came across Europe, and basically every country in Europe has some form of the bagpipe in its history. There's the German sackpfeife, the Italian zambonia, the Spanish gaita, the French have the musette and the cornemuse. We have the Scottish Highland bagpipes, the Irish pipes are the uilleann pipes, and then the British Isles just has a whole other variety of pipes, Scottish Lowland small pipes, pastoral pipes, border pipes, all similar in that they have a bag, but different instruments, different sounds. Quick explanation of how these work. There is the bag. That is the basis of the sound, which is continuous. When I stop to take a breath, I have a reservoir full of air that keeps the pipes going, that keeps the music moving. Traditionally, this was a leather hide bag of some sort. These days it's Gore-Tex. The chanter is the melody pipe. There is a double reed inside, similar to an oboe or a bassoon. I have a range of 9 notes. That's it. They are written as naturals, although if you listen to the scale, it most closely resembles a traditional E-flat scale. And that's the way it is. So if I'm playing a duet with an organ, the organ has to play an E-flat to match my key. I can't change what I'm doing. So I have a range of 9 notes, G on the second line of a G clef scale to high A. The drones sitting over my shoulder each play 1 note. The 2 smaller ones, the tenors, play 1 octave below the low A of the chanter, and the bass plays another octave below the tenors. So overall, what you're hearing is a range of 3 octaves of music coming out of the pipes. The English comedian Anna Russell, in a stage presentation that she did on the bagpipes, explained that the system is basically blow, suck, squeeze, twiddle. You blow in to fill the bag, you suck back to close the valve so the air doesn't come back out at you. You squeeze the bag, forcing the air into the 4 sounding pipes, and then you twiddle your fingers to make the music. And if you do anything out of order, it doesn't work. That's a very simplified way of explaining it, but it's close to what is happening. As part of their ancient heritage, Emperor Nero, who everybody says fiddled while Rome burned, fiddles hadn't been invented yet. And history seems to tell us that he was actually an accomplished piper. So we would like to say that he piped while Rome burned. The pipes have led Scottish Highlanders into battle for centuries. The last time was the Battle of El Alamein in 1942. Up until that time, there was a gentleman's agreement that the pipers were non-combatants, sort of like medics, so you didn't shoot them. But if you're raking the field of battle with a machine gun, all bets are off. In the Battle of El Alamein, the Germans finally realized that if they could stop the pipers, they could stop the Highlanders, and they started picking off the pipers. And that was the last time that pipers led troops into battle. The pipers are still there with the regiments, and all duty calls are done with the pipes, but they don't lead into battle anymore. So, quick background of the Highland pipes. Let's fire them up and see what's happening. The first sound you hear will be the drones starting up, and then the chanter comes in after the pressure increases a little more. We'll start with 3 traditional tunes: the Rowan Tree, the Badge of Scotland, and Scotland the Brave. I told you earlier that the last time the pipes led into battle was the Battle of El Alamein, and officially that's it. But there was one more time with one piper leading men into battle. Bill Millen is a hero in the piping community because he is the last piper to lead soldiers into battle. It's D-Day, 1944, and Bill Millen is part of Lord Lovat's commandos. This is a private army. And Lord Lovat came to Bill Millen and said, when we hit the beaches, I want you to be playing your pipes. And Bill Millen said, well, you know, the War Office has decreed that pipers no longer lead into battle. And Lord Lovat replied, yes, that's true, but that's the British War Office, and we're Scottish, so it doesn't apply to us. So this was the plan, that Bill was going to lead the troops onto the beach. So June 6, 1944, the landing craft is approaching Sword Beach. The gate on the front of the landing craft drops, and almost immediately the soldier next to Bill Millen is hit in the head and killed with a bullet. Bill turns to Lord Lovat and asks somewhat sarcastically, you want me to march up and down the beach? And Lord Lovat said, yes, that would be nice. Bill did. I will be playing 2 of the tunes that he played on the beach that day, The Road to the Isles and the Highland Laddie. Once the beach was secured, Lord Lovat's commandos moved inland because their next objective was to relieve the glider regiment that had captured Pegasus Bridge during the night. And they did that successfully. They came across a farmhouse where a little French girl, red-haired French girl with her parents came out and asked if he could play some music. And he played for her The Brown-Haired Maiden. That was the last tune that Bill played on D-Day. He survived the war. He died 10 years ago. His pipes did not survive. They took a direct hit on D-Day +4. I assume they were rebuilt somehow because he did continue piping throughout the war. Bill attended many anniversary reunions for D-Day. He met some of the German snipers who said, you know, we had you in our sights, but we thought you were a crazy man, and why waste a bullet on a crazy man? He also met, in his words, a woman of a certain age with fading red hair who came up and gave him a joyful kiss of remembrance. It was the little red-haired girl. A river can be a formidable defensive line. There's a story of an American officer being presented with a tactical problem who said, the problem is great, but not as great as an early morning river crossing under fire. The River Po runs from west to east across northern Italy. As the Allies were advancing northward, the Germans were retreating. This became an obstacle that the Allies had to get across and the Germans were defending. The 8th Argyles made that river crossing under fire, and the first tune I am going to play is the 8th Argyles crossing the River Po. The second one is crossing the Rhine, which was the last barrier keeping the Allies from the heartland of Germany. The Germans had been destroying all the bridges across the Rhine to slow down the Allied advance. An Allied scouting party found there was one bridge still standing, the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen, and it had been damaged by the Germans, but it hadn't collapsed yet. So for 10 days, March 7th to 17th, 1945, the Allies poured whatever they could across that bridge until it finally collapsed from all the damage it had received and the weight of Allied vehicles. They still needed to get more troops across, and this was an amphibious crossing. Took place March 23rd and 24th, when 80,000 British and Canadian troops crossed the Rhine. This was so successful that Churchill sent a note to General Eisenhower saying, "My dear General Eisenhower, the German is whipped. We got him. He is through." And 7 weeks later, the war was over. The tune commemorating this crossing is the 10th Battalion, Highland Light Infantry, crossing the Rhine. The name is almost longer than the tune itself. Just so you don't think this is all about military music and things martial, we have something from Sir Paul McCartney. Paul and his wife Linda bought a farm on the island of Kintyre, and the story is that as the result of a bar bet as to whether or not he could write music for the Bagpipes, this tune came about. I don't know if that's completely true, but it makes for a good story. The Mull is a promontory or a headland. It's what you first see when you're returning from the sea. And he wrote this tune with his band at the time, Wings. This is after the Beatles. When it first came out, it was on the original CD, you know, that compact disc, that little record with the big hole in the middle, a 45. Well, side A was something called Girls' School, and Mull of Kintyre was side B. Nobody remembers side A at all, but Mull of Kintyre was top of the charts for 9 weeks. The band that performed the bagpipe part of the tune is the Campbelltown Pipe Band, and this is the pipe part of Mull of Kintyre. I had mentioned some of the other varieties of bagpipes. These are Scottish Lowland small pipes. Still have a bag. They will have a very different sound. Still have the same range, 9 notes, but much quieter. These are very often played indoors. The 3 drones, instead of resting across my shoulder, are cradled in my arm, and instead of 2 tenors and a bass, which is what my Highland pipes have, these have a tenor, a baritone, and a bass. I call this segment Time Travel. The first tune, the Sky Boat Song, is an old tune. It goes back to 1746, after the Battle of Culloden, when Bonnie Prince Charlie escaped the English troops, disguised as a handmaiden to Dame Flora MacDonald. And he was escaped by sea. And the song, the Sky Boat Song, I'm going to give you the words, but you don't want to hear me sing, is "Speed, bonny boat, like a bird on the wing, onward the sailors cry, carry the lad who's born to be king, over the sea to sky." That tune is also being used as the theme music for Outlander, which I'm sure some of you have seen on cable. And many of you believe that it was a new tune. Well, it's not. It's the old tune, so it's time travel coming forward. The other tune, The Dark Island, is one that I've played for years, and I always thought that it was a traditional old tune. And it turns out it was written in 1956 for a BBC thriller set on the island of Benbecula in the Outer Hebrides. So, old tune, but not so old. So, the Sky Boat Song and The Dark Island. (1982), the Falklands War. Most people think of the Scots Guards as the red-coated toy soldiers in front of Buckingham Palace, but all of the Guards Brigade are active fighting soldiers. The Falklands War, Scots Guards were sent down there, and they had orders to attack a mountain called Tumbledown. The attack started at midnight in a blizzard, and by noon of the following day they had taken the mountain. The pipe major, in traditional fashion, was asked to write a tune to commemorate this, and that tune is the Crags of Tumbledown Mountain. The first part is a dirge for the men who fell in the battle, and the second part is the victory march. This is one of my favorite tunes because of the way I acquired it. Shortly after the Falklands War, the Black Watch and Scots Guards performed in Madison Square Garden, and this was performed and I was kind of blown away. This is the days before the internet, so how do you get in touch with the Scots Guards? So I trusted to the post office, both ours and theirs, and sent a letter to the Director of Music, Scots Guards, wherever, Great Britain, hoping it would get through. And just before Christmas of that year, I got a large brown envelope, and across the front said, "On Her Majesty's service." And this was a copy of the original handwritten music for the Crags of Tumbledown Mountain and the handwritten scoring for the brass band to go along with it. So we were the first band to have this tune and play it. Following that, when I was working as piper for the Forbes family and corporation, Margaret Thatcher was a guest on the yacht several times, our yacht, the Highlander. And on one of those excursions, the chief steward came to the crew and said, "Mrs. Thatcher will be happy to autograph items if you leave them for her." And I happened to have a copy of the sheet music for Crags with me, and I left that, and when it came back, it had a note on it, "Thanks for the memories of the Falklands, Margaret." It's almost as though we'd been walking hand in hand on the beach. So this is the Crags of Tumbledown Mountain.
Thank you, Jonathan. That was an absolutely fantastic recital, and I'm so grateful to you and Dougal for making it possible for us. It's obviously not quite the same as being on the lawn in front of Grace Church, but at the same time, wow, what a wonderful performance and an informative one too. I think let's take a little bit of time to maybe talk a little bit about how you came to the pipes in the first place, and you know, where that has taken you as part of your musical career.
Well, I've been playing, or I've been learning to play the pipes for just about 65 years now. I say learning because I don't claim to have mastered them. I know I'm getting the hang of it now. I fell in love with the sound of the pipes. As far as I can place it, it was probably the movie Gunga Din, with the pipers leading the troops across the plains in India. And the sound was just captivating. When the Black Watch came to Madison Square Garden, in those days it was a 2-week run that they would be at the garden. I went to see them, was literally blown away by the show. And in the program, there was an ad for the practice chanter. It's the half-size version of the melody pipe.
Yep.
And that's what all pipers start on, and you continue for the rest of your life, because when you're learning a new tune, you learn on the practice chanter, which is very easy to play. You're not exhausting yourself on the big pipes. And every band practice, we start with a chanter practice where we're going over new music or some part of the music that's giving us trouble, whatever. So it's always there. Anyway, it was $5 for the practice chanter and the instruction book from the College of Piping in Scotland. And I was playing trumpet at that point. I could read music, and I really thought I was getting the hang of this nicely. And I got through the first 2 or 3 tunes thinking I really had it, and got to the next tune, which was one I had heard. And what was coming out was not even close to the way the music should be. And that's when I realized the book is written assuming your father plays the pipes. Somebody has to sit down and say, this is how you do it, kid. And that's the way I teach. I'll lay out all the sheet music in front of you, but say, this is how you do it. And I then hooked up with a band in Yonkers Kilty. And at that time, I believe they were considered to be the oldest pipe band in the country. And I was so close to getting it that they worked with me for 2 nights and said, well, this is how you do this. This is how this fits in. And suddenly it clicked. And I became a piper with them for a number of years. And then professional work took me elsewhere. And then I found that there was a new band in Mount Kisco, which was closer to home. And I joined that as, the first year the band was in existence. And I've been with them ever since. It's now, I think we're 48 or 49 years old. And I've been the pipe major of the band, the leader of the band for 30 years.
Wow.
So my ambition was just to be in a pipe band. That's what I wanted to do.
Right.
But along the way, you start getting calls for the occasional wedding or funeral or birthday party. And I would do those and was always sweating bullets and worrying about everything. And all that changed in 1987. There was a new airline, Scottish airline, called Highland Express Airways.
Yeah.
The American vice president called me and asked me to be their piper.
Wow.
And I was a little surprised, and I said, thank you very much, but I can give you the names of several other pipers that are probably more qualified. And she said, well, that may be, but we've been watching you, and you play very well, you dress properly, you show up on time, and you don't drink. And this is a PR job, and we cannot afford to have a drunken piper. And then, so suddenly, I get a call saying, we need you at a big do at the British consulate, go. And I go there and someone would say, now. And there wasn't any time to sweat and worry over it. And I was suddenly thrust into the public eye as a performer.
Right.
And got used to it.
Got thrown in at the deep end, kind
yeah.
of. I didn't have time to be nervous.
No.
Yeah.
So I was on retainer with the airline, and they would call me, and it was big things like the British consulate, or they had given raffle tickets to a church on Staten Island, and I was to be there to pipe as the winner was announced. So it was a whole range of things.
Right.
And also going to the airport, to Newark Airport, to meet or send off certain VIP flights.
Ah.
So I would go, and I had to have my passport with me, because to go to the other side of customs, you're now in foreign land. The tarmac is outside of the United States. I need my passport to go there.
Ah,
And I would be there to, whatever, pipe is the plane, unloaded or loaded.
yeah.
And, the customs guys knew me.
Yeah.
And as a special bonus, I discovered that I had travel benefits. So for one of our anniversaries, as we were looking for a B&B to go to, we said, let's call the airline. Of course, you travel free.
Ah.
So we flew to Scotland for the weekend, called two sets of relatives, said, we'll be with you on Saturday and you on Sunday, and that sort of thing.
Fantastic. And you have the duty-free shops, whatever you want them as
Yes.
well, I suppose. So there you go.
And the airline, unfortunately, lasted for only a year. The big boys were a little concerned about this, and there was some skullduggery with the bank that had financed the 747 that we had. And the airline was shut down. I won't get into all the detail, all the gory.
Better not. Yeah.
But now, because of their connection, the Bank of Scotland, who was one of their sponsors, now was using me as their American piper for their functions here, New York and Boston.
Yeah.
And there were a few other people that had seen me that way. And then, shortly thereafter, I was hired by Forbes, the Forbes Corporation, to be their piper, both corporate and family. So most of my job as the corporate piper was on the company yacht, the Highlander. And I was up and down the East Coast, the Great Lakes, the Bahamas, and piping for functions of a certain level. Basically, usually I was told it meant that some member of the Forbes family had to be on the boat, as opposed to just some department of Forbes needing the boat.
Right.
But I could be requested, and I was sort of bounced around, but I could be there. So
you might be say at home in New York, and the boat would be someplace else, and they would call you and say you need to be here,
and they get me there. Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So while I could travel with the boat, more often I would be flown to meet the boat if it was not in New York.
Right.
And that was corporate travel. I'm traveling with an overnight bag in my pipe case, and and everything is set up for me. It was nice and easy. A wonderful make-believe world.
Yeah. Well, I know at one point you told me you'd played for Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Was that as part of Forbes or another occasion?
Yes, that was Forbes. She, a number of times, had been a guest on the yacht, and was on twice while I was on as piper. And it was just lots of security. I mean, there was Forbes security, and she had her own Scotland Yard security with her. And I remember one night after all the guests had gone to bed, I was talking to one of her security people from Scotland Yard. And I said, did it concern you at all that I have edged weapons on me? Part of my uniform, that that's knives and daggers.
Yeah.
And he patted a gun pouch on his belt and said, "No, we've got much more firepower than you have." But as I mentioned in the concert,
right.
There was one night when the chief steward came to the crew and said, "Mrs. Thatcher will be happy to autograph items for you." And I happened to have the music of the Crags of Tumbledown Mountain. She was prime minister during that war, the war with Argentina over who owned the Falklands.
Right.
And, I left that. And when it came back, it was signed. And I really need to frame it at some point. But, thanks for the memories of the Falklands, Margaret.
So that was neat. But I've played for Princess Anne, heads of state, captains of industry, dealing with all sorts of security types, personal bodyguards. Um, it's just, it's was a wild, wonderful time. I was with them, with Forbes, just about 14 years. And then 2008, the financial crisis, everything sort of shut down and they eventually sold the yacht. Uh, I, I still get calls to do some occasional corporate functions or family functions. So I'm still their piper, but it's nowhere near as busy as it once was.
Right.
And while with Forbes, Steve Forbes ran twice for the presidency. And to be that close to a presidential campaign is really exciting. I mean, yes, I'm not involved with the day-to-day anything, but
Right.
the swirling around me is all there. There's a real excitement.
Yeah.
And I know one night the chief steward said, you know, if the boss gets in, I may be chief steward in the White House and you could be presidential piper. And suddenly there's this wonderful fantasy. Okay, does that mean that I have to move to Washington or I stay up here and they fly me down whenever they need me?
So time has changed a few things. I have to say that there's some strange correlation between the Forbes, which, you know, to some extent are American royalty, and the British royal family, neither of which have a yacht at this point. But,
Right.
you know, really for the same reason, they're so expensive to run. But
Yes.
yeah, it's I do love all of that. You know, one of the things when you were talking about Highland Express, you sort of, you know, said that their agent, if you will, said, well, you know, we've watched you and you certainly look like a piper and you turn up on time and whatever. And I've said to you over the years that, you know, there is something about this business of looking like a piper and what people expect. And I think you told me that you'd done some work for Aeropostale, the clothing line, and some other
Yes.
fashion things as well.
Yes. Well, I mean, I've had the beard for most of my life at this point. It's part of my public persona. It didn't used to be this white. But yes, I have the look that people seem to associate with the wild Highlander. And that's fine. So yes, I did some work with Aeropostale. They used me in a number of shoots, fashion shoots. And the other fashion thing I did was an Ann Taylor fashion show at the Grand Ballroom of the Plaza Hotel.
Ah.
It was 89 or 90 and lots of security because, you know, nobody has to see the new line before it's officially released.
Right.
And that year, tartan was supposed to be the big thing. And I was there. I was to pipe out on the runway, lead out, and then the models would come out behind me. And that was the first segment of the show. For security reasons, to make sure that I didn't go anywhere, I had to be locked in the changing room with the models. And they said, okay, you know, they're used to undressing in front of people. They're professionals. You be professional. So I can tell you, I was very professional, sitting in the corner, observing.
Yeah.
Of course, when very naked Inga came up and introduced herself and asked if I'd be going out with them in another segment, you know, I wasn't quite as cool, but.
But you were a professional, at least.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's important. Well, you know, before we close today, I do just have to remark on this wonderful background that you are sitting in front of, and I know this is part of your wonderful farm, and you know, I mean, the reality is that you were a farmer in the lower part of Putnam County long before it was fashionable to be a farmer again, and I know that you're also a wonderful cabinet maker and woodworker. We share a love of vintage machinery. me with cars, you with motorcycles and things. And there are all of these things that have left me thinking of you really as a Renaissance man, in addition to a wonderful piper. And I'm wondering if all these different aspects of your life kind of feed the musical life and sort of make it, bring some energy to that.
I imagine they do, although I'm not sure I could actually describe just how it all comes together. I have been referred to as a Renaissance man at other times, and I really appreciate that. I started out professionally as an oceanographer, and then I was a teacher, high school math and science. And one of the English teachers, I am told, in describing a Renaissance man and what a Renaissance man was, would say, you know, like Mr. Henken. So, you know, the oceanography sort of ended as government cutbacks killed most of the research money. I started teaching on a dare from a high school classmate who said, hey, you know, we should both register as substitutes and we could teach together. And I said, okay, we did that. And then she almost immediately moved to Colorado, leaving me teaching locally. But I got my teaching certificate. And then I was always a woodworker. My father was an architect and builder, and I grew up around his crew, and they were my heroes. Right. So I was doing that professionally for a while, and I guess I still am a cabinet maker, at least until I finish our own house, which you can barely see. It's that big red barn in the background. We took a big empty barn and converted the inside to a house. So there are still some things I need to finish. My wife will point them all out. And the mechanics, the motorcycles, tractors, how things work. I'm not sure how it all feeds into being a musician. I have another musician friend, one of my pipers, who had commented on the fact that he's a gearhead also, as you are, Tim. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we talked about that. And he said, well, musicians traditionally are starving artists. So they're the ones, they can't afford to pay someone to keep their cars going. They have to learn how to do it.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
Maybe that's how it all ties in. I never quite thought of myself as a starving artist, but maybe borderline sometimes.
Yeah, well, it sounds like one thing's run into another, and it, you know, it certainly has for me as well. And the thing that I remember a teacher in graduate school saying to me that if you can have 2 or 3 different passions, then when one gets to be dispiriting and a little bit hard going, you can focus on the other for a day or two and then sort of circle around back to something. And that's so important to keeping things going as well.
Right, there's definitely some real truth to that, yes.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much. We could talk all afternoon because this is, I know you've been doing this for Downtown Music for at least 28 years now, and we've known each other longer than that. And I'm just so grateful for you taking what you did in White Plains, and what I hopefully will do it in the future in White Plains, and making it possible for us to experience it this year again. So thank you so much. And I will just say to those who are watching that at this time next week, and also on YouTube for a period of 10 days after that, you'll be able to hear and talk with John Lehman Haupt, the wonderful New York guitarist. And he's going to play everything from classical music to the music of Stevie Wonder for you. And hopefully we'll have a lot of fun. So thank you, Jonathan. Thank you to our Downtown Music audience, and we will catch up with you again next week. Bye-bye.
And thank you very much for having me as part of your Downtown Music family.
Always a pleasure, Jonathan. Thank you.